pursuant to the provisions of Iowa Code Section 6B.4, 2015, you're instructed as follows. Duties of the Commission and Commissioners. Governmental units and certain utilities are authorized by state law to condemn private property for certain public use and good purposes. However, the Constitution prohibits the taking of private property for public use without just compensation. It is the Commission's duty to fix a just compensation in a fair and impartial manner and on an independent basis. No commissioner shall possess any interest in the proceeding which would cause such person to render a biased decision. Prior to the meeting of the commission or commissioner shall not communicate with the applicant, property owner, or tenant or their rights regarding the condemnation proceedings. Prior to the meeting of the commission, the sheriff will administer the oath to commissioner members. State law requires that a compensation commission meet in open session to view the property and to receive evidence, that the commission may deliberate in closed session. When deliberating in closed session, the meeting is closed to all persons who are not commissioners except for personnel from the sheriff's office if such personnel are required by the commission. After deliberations commence, the commission and each commissioner is prohibited from communicating with any party to the proceeding unless such communication occurs in the presence of or with the consent of the property owner and the other parties who appear before the commission. However, if the commission is deliberating in closed session and after deliberations commence, the commission requires further information from a party of a witness, the commission shall notify the property owner and the acquiring agency that they are allowed to attend the meeting at which such additional information shall be provided, but only for the period of time during which such additional information is being provided. The property owner and the acquiring agency shall be given reasonable opportunity to attend the meeting. The commission shall keep minutes of all its meetings. These minutes are a public record open to public inspection. The minutes are required to show the date, time, and place of each meeting, the members present, the action taken in each meeting, the result of each vote taken, and information sufficient to indicate the vote of each member present. The vote of each member present must be made public in the open session. If a vote is taken by the commission during closed session deliberation, the commission must reconvene in open session at the close of its deliberation, and at the vote of each member during the closed session must be made public. The minutes are public record open to public inspection. The sheriff shall coordinate the meeting of the commissioners, shall arrange an appropriate meeting place for the commissioners, shall assure that appointed commissioners receive the order of the court appointing them and directing their attendance in the meeting of commissioners, and shall report the unavailability or absence of appointed commissioners to the chief judge, to the applicant, and to the landowner. The sheriff shall furnish transportation to and from the site of the property the commission is required to view. Assessment of damages. In determining fair market value of property, the commissioner shall not consider only the assessed value assigned to such property for purpose of property taxation. A property owner is entitled to be made whole, but double recovery is not allowed. When the entire property unit is taken, the measure of damage is the fair market value of the property immediately before the condemnation and before such value has been affected by the proposed public use. When only a portion of the property unit is taken, including certain rights such as an easement, the measure of damage is the difference between the fair market value of the property as a whole immediately before condemnation and before it has been affected by the proposed public use, and the fair market value of the remaining property after the taking. Any advantage or benefit that may occur to the remaining property by reason of the public use is not to be considered. Substantially the same measure applies to a leasehold. The commission shall consider and make allowance for any personal property that is damaged or destroyed or reduced in value, and, when applicable, for the cost of removing and replacing fences and removing buildings onto abutting property of the owner. Allowance shall be made, if any, for the unreasonable cost of moving an owner's or tenant's personal property from the land to be condemned to a point no greater than 50 miles. But in any event, the damages for moving shall not exceed $5,000 for each owner or tenant. An owner or tenant may apply for a separate moving award for the cost of moving personal property only if all other damages provided by law have been awarded and are insufficient to pay the owner or tenant's refund the cost of moving. At the request of the condemnor or the condemnee, the commission shall divide the damage into parts to indicate the value of any dwelling, the value of the land and improvement other than a dwelling, and the value of any additional damages. The commission shall file with the sheriff a written report containing the appraisal. All commissioners are required to sign the written report to the sheriff. Commissioners who do not concur with the majority of the commissioners may so note on the report. In arriving at the fair market value of the property, the commission shall not consider evidence or information regarding prior negotiations between the parties. However, when the commission reports the commissioner's award to the sheriff, if it exceeds 110% of the condemner's final offer, the sheriff will so advise the commission, and the commission will then determine the fixed reasonable attorney's fees and costs, including the reasonable cost of one appraisal, if any, incurred by the condemnee in presenting the condemnee's case before the commission. These brief and general instructions do not contain all of the issues that might confront you. I advise you to carefully review applicable state laws relevant to your responsibilities and procedures and the condemnation matter before you. In addition, the position of the parties or their attorneys may be explained to you at the time of the hearing, dated the 6th day of April, 2016.
The undersigned, having first been duly sworn, each severally states that he or she is a resident of Boone County, Iowa, and is a person possessing the required qualifications. that he or she does not possess any interest in the proceedings which should cause to render a biased decision, that he or she will, to the best of their ability, faithfully and impartially assess the damage for said condemnation of said property and or easements thereof, and will make written reports to the sheriff of Wayne County, Iowa. This will take into pursuant to the provisions of section 6B.7 Code of Iowa. Pass them down. You normally don't have this many people here, so I want to make sure everybody understands the process we're going to go through on this. So, the only people that's going to be speaking, this isn't up for debate as far as whether this wall should go there or in that place or a different place or should be even existing. All we're talking about in this whole job for this commission is to decide the value of the land that the city has to pay to the landowner. That's the whole process. So the city will, once I turn it over to the commission, the city will make a little talk, an overview of the property. You guys can do the same thing if you want. Then after that, we're going to adjourn, go out to the site, view it, then we'll come back, and then that's when the city will put on the rest of their presentation, and then you guys can rebut that. But again, this isn't open for a debate society. The only property we're talking about at this present time is this specific property, not the project as a whole. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start by having the commissioners introduce yourselves and, you know, what your living is or situation is that you're here.
John Stolke, I'm retired.
Dan Nosbish, I'm a realtor with Scoden Realty, focusing on residential properties.
Jeff Gibney, I'm a real estate appraiser.
Kathy Hall, retired realtor.
Molly Iverson, realtor with Cole Baker Hedges, specializing in residential and commercial property.
Ian Lippy, a commercial lender at Fairham State Bank.
Okay, and then if the first tables from each would introduce yourselves, please.
Oh, I'm just a watcher.
Okay.
AJ Ditmar, resident.
Yeah, my name is Greg Vale. I have a house in the property area. I'm here to speak for Matt Robinette today.
I'm Matt Robinette, I'm the condemned.
You're the property owner?
Yes,
of
I'm the
subject
property owner.
Okay.
Rita Rasmussen, I'm the City of Cedar Rapids Real Estate Services Manager.
My name is Rob Davis. I'm the City of Cedar Rapids Flood Control System Manager.
Russ Modernat, I'm real estate appraiser. Chris Neidl, Assistant City Attorney for City of Rapids.
Well, then let's start with the city telling us about this project and what we're going to see later.
It's just 111 by 17 for you.
For you?
This is a fairly simple discussion. What you have in your map basically shows the outline of the levee that will run through the time check neighborhood. The property is outlined in red, and you can see the footprint of the flood control system goes over the subject property and sits on almost all of it. So this is a full acquisition of the entire property. When that flood system goes in, we'll have to have it out of there. I really don't have anything else stays fairly dry in that regard.
anything else from the city?
You guys want a quick overview or not?
I'm going to start with an opening statement. All right? We are here today because Matt has not been shown an offer of just compensation. Does not even meet the standard of fair market value. Now, Matt could have gotten an attorney. He has Dan Manning in mind for an appeal, but he's aware that under 6018, he knows that a jury trial under Article 1, Section 18 of the Iowa Constitution makes for a much longer process. He is willing to sell his home, but the offers he has received have been inadequate. The Iowa Code 6B and the Uniform Relocation Act under 42 U.S.C. Chapter 61 allow for a large range of options, and Matt has been offered underneath of the lowball end of that range. I will prove that between a faulty appraisal, unsimilar comparisons, undisclosed program benefits, and bad program facilitators that Matt has not been shown good faith negotiations and should probably contact a HUD investigator. Matt just wants what is allowed by the Iowa Code and the URA. Understand, this is not a voluntary buyout. This is a forced buyout. Matt should not be allotted the minimum, but the maximum allowed by Iowa Code 6B2B, and again in 6B.543, 130% of a comparable replacement dwelling plus expenses to the owner, with the agreement that Matt will not sue for more damages. I guarantee you the alternative, a jury trial with Dan Manning and a HUD investigation, will cost the city much more than Matt is going to ask for today. I'm going to start here with a letter that I have from the city. Matt's process started on October 1st of 2021. Right after that, in November, we have a letter here from the city stating to Matt that his rights, known as the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies of 1970, 42 U.S.C. 4601. Get rid of this. When we go to 42 U.S.C. 601, we find out that things are a little bit different when it comes to fair market value when the city is using federal money to purchase land, right? Under 4623, A, the amount of any which added to an acquisition cost of dwelling acquired by the displacement agency equals the reasonable cost of a comparable replacement dwelling. Now, the term functionally equivalent under 49 CFR 4.2 says functionally equivalent replacement dwelling. The term functionally equivalent means that it performs the same function and provides the same utility, while a comparable replacement dwelling need not possess every feature of the displacement dwelling. Principal features must be present. Generally, functional equivalency is an objective standard, reflecting the range of purpose for which the various physical features of a dwelling may be used. However, in determining whether a replacement dwelling is functionally equivalent to the displacement dwelling, the agency may consider reasonable trade-offs for specific features when the replacement unit is equal to or better than the displacement dwellings. We're going to show here today that the comps that were given for Matt were not equal to or better than, they were less than. All right? Let me move along here a little bit. I'm going to move into Matt's appraisal that Matt was given by, certified appraiser. I don't know, he says in here like 20 years, something like that. I want to point out right out of the gate that the functionally equivalent definition that I was just talking about, well, it's right here in his appraisal report. 49 CFR part 24, right? And so they're supposed to follow this. Along with that, 316A9A is what says that they're supposed to follow this Relocation Act. When we come over here to Matt's appraisal, I notice right out of the gate, he's at 100 by 128 feet lot. This is a 12,800 square foot lot that Matt has. When we go over to the appraisal marks here, the comps that Matt's been shown, well, a lot of these are all a single lot. Many of them 6,400 square feet, which is half of what Matt has. Now, if we look at the adjustment on this, Matt has been given $1,300 for an adjustment on his extra lot. The reality is here in town, if you go anywhere to buy a lot, if you go somewhere to buy a 1/4 acre of a lot, $62,000. A 12th, which Matt's is about a 14th or a 15th, these are $30,000 lots anywhere within the city. So a $1,300 adjustment is just appalling. When we come over here and we notice that there is one lot that they have in here that is about 2/3, 8,634 feet. But the adjustment on that, well, it's 0, right? So you're telling Matt in this appraisal that 1/3 of his lot is worth absolutely nothing, right? On top of that, we go through these appraisals, many of these have a single stall garage, right? As far as functional equivalency goes, Matt has a 2.5 stall garage. A single stall garage is not functionally equivalent to a single stall garage. The adjustment for these, and interestingly enough, it's the same adjustment through all of them. So the appraiser apparently considers a 2-stall garage to be worth $8,000 and a single stall garage to be worth $4,000, right? The reality is, if I go look online, a single stall garage without the concrete, got to go buy a Menards, still got to have it put together, you still got to pour a slab for it. These are $5,000, $10,000 for 2. So the reality is a 2.5 stall garage, it's going to cost Matt about $15,000. Plus what, you got to tear a single one down, put another one up. So the point here is these compositions just aren't equal to, they're underneath. They do have Matt's house listed in here as a 2-bedroom. Matt has a 3-bedroom house. Let's keep moving on some of these. The other thing I'd like to point out here is that as far as functionally equivalent goes, Matt has skylights in his roof. I mean, these contain value. They perform a function for him. I mean, in the wintertime, they let sun in, they keep his heat bill down. They're right on top of both him and his son's bedroom. They just wake him up in the morning on the south side of the house. This is a function of Matt's property that has to be considered. The other thing in looking at a lot of these properties, when we go through and look at the pictures of them, I mean, I drove around and checked them out, and I know quite a bit about the properties that are in this neighborhood. Many of them have been rebuilt since the flood. Many of these had galvanized piping. Matt, well, he has PEX piping. His plumbing was all completely redone. Not all this was done in these flooded houses. Not all of them follow the arc fault breakers that they're supposed to have in the circuit box, because Matt has a completely new electrical system in his house. Some of these properties have old gas-style furnaces where water heaters where, you know, the gas still has to pipe out through the chimney. You know, Matt's PCV's right out the side of the house. He has upgraded systems. Matt's furnace is new. Matt's furnace also has an allergen system on it, right? So these things are all adjustments that should be in there. On top of the fact that I want to point out that Matt's upstairs bathroom, well, it has a hot tub in it. This is his personal property that cannot be removed. He also has a 3-foot by 3-foot shower, 3 foot deep, 3 foot wide. You can see Matt's a fairly big guy. Little showers, you know, they hit you in the head with the shower head. You run into the walls with your elbow all the time. These are all things that Matt would have to make an adjustment to in order to get compensation for his new property. All right, let's move into here a little bit. Next I want to show you is that after Matt received an offer for $135,000, and I have like 6 pages in here that show that they've tried to get him to sign this thing a number of different times. After Matt was given an offer of $135,000 by the facilitating company, he was also sent a letter a couple of weeks later from the city of Cedar Rapids, once again showing 42 USC 4601 as his rights. This one says on page 2, the relocation assistance which you are entitled to includes. We will get this a little bit later, but Matt wasn't ever told anything about how much money he was going to get to move. All he's been done is given an appraisal that says $135,000 and a bunch of pieces of paper for him to sign saying that he would accept this $135,000, nothing more. And in this thing, I notice it says, listed below are 3 comparable replacement dwellings that you may wish to consider. Right? I look at these and they also say, we can arrange transportation for you to inspect them. They list the price of these things, $165, $175, $185. So Matt, he's getting an offer for $135,000 from a facilitating company that has absolutely no delegated authority. And the city who has the delegated authority is sending him a letter telling him his property is worth $165,000 to $185,000. So you got to wonder why the guy wouldn't sign the piece of paper for $135,000, right? Next, I want to point out that in 6B2B, oh, got my B's upside down. There we go. Oh, here's my B's. In 6B2B, it says here, however, in the alternative, the acquiring agency may, it says may, make and the owner may accept a purchase offer from the acquiring agency that is in an amount equal to 130% of the appraisal amount plus payment to the owner for expenses. So now I'm going to go back to a little ways. I'm going to go back to the flood of 2008 when they bought people's property out. Here I have a letter in 2008 from the city. Says the city council has tried since its election to work on behalf of the flood survivors of Cedar Rapids. We fought to increase your buyouts to 107%. Really, when I read this, I think, yeah, well, they kind of just ripped them off 23% because they probably should have got 130. But you can see, even in a voluntary buyout acquisition, the city was willing to give more than 100%. Now, this isn't a voluntary buyout acquisition. This is a forced buyout. Matt, once again, should not get the minimum allowed by Iowa law. He should get the maximum allowed by Iowa law. And I bring these things up because, you know, I'm not an attorney, but I guarantee you that when the attorney steps in and has a jury trial, the jury's going to look at this stuff and they're going to see the exact same things that I do, right? They're going to see and they're going to look at the picture and they're going to go, huh, that just doesn't quite seem fair. And then according to the law, you guys can give so much more than what's been offered, right? Next, we're going to kind of move back here. We're going to move back here again to 46 USC chapter 61. 4623A1 says, in additional to payments otherwise authorized by this chapter, subchapter, the head of the displacing agency shall make an additional payment not in excess of $31,000. So $31,000 is the amount of money that can be allotted to Matt for his relocation expenses. Talking to a number of different people, it seems like, I don't know, $31,000 has kind of become the norm. I'm not, you know, fully sure of that, but when it comes right down to it, once again, Matt should get the maximum, not the minimum, for his property. And in the end here, I'm going to find, I've got a numbers page for you, and I'm going to have some numbers on here as to what Matt is actually expecting for his property. Can I present this to the commission? The sheriff, can I present this to the commission, or I have to have somebody hand it to him?
No, you do it.
Okay.
Whether you want to show them everything right now, or you want to go out and view the property.
No, this is just fine. So on this piece of paper, and I'll give out a couple of them here, I have some numbers. And what we're talking about, once again, is the appraisal plus functional equivalent replacement dwelling times 130% plus the moving expenses that Matt should get. Comparable to placement dwelling is under 42 USC Chapter 61A. Relocation funds under 42 USC Chapter 60A1. Iowa Code 6B2B and 6B.54 Subchapter 3, 130% plus expenses. If we look at Matt's missing comparisons, Matt's missing a $30,000 garage, or a $15,000 garage. He's missing a $30,000 lot. The utility upgrades in the bathroom that Matt has that are going to require to be changed to create functional equality in this I have down at $15,000. These numbers can be adjusted a little bit, but like I say, a lot these days is 30 grand. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is Matt also has a thing that they call water view, water access. Now, Matt doesn't have a waterfront property. He has a section of easement between his house and the river. But water view and water access are still values created in a property. I mean, many times I'm sure you guys call that curb appeal, right? So if we look at the numbers at the bottom, even if I was just going to allot Matt the extra lot he needs and the garage, I would have $135,000 plus A and B, which puts me up to $180,000, times 130% puts me at $224,000, plus $31,000 gives Matt $255,000. If I go down and add everything that Matt should be getting for his property in order to be functionally equivalent under the United States Code, $135,000 becomes $215,000 appraisal for Matt's property. $279,000 with the 30%, and $315,500 with the relocation cost. Now, the reason we're even bringing a lot of this up is because Matt hasn't been told about relocation costs. Matt hasn't been told about the extra money he wasn't supposed to get on top. And as you can see, Matt was not given an appraisal that was functionally equivalent, at least equal to or better than the property that he has. That's all I got for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have a copy of the appraisal?
You get another one.
Value of the property in question.
How is the expenses calculated? How do you figure that? Is that something the city does? Is that how do you?
The expenses.
We allocated 31,000 by maximum.
That's part of the relocation benefits.
Yeah, that's
that we've
relocation.
attempted to explain and drop off comparables. And that's something outside of what should be considered today.
But it's allowable for a 50-mile radius.
Oh, yeah, that's the moving.
Anything else from the city before we go view the property?
Just a reminder of the commission duties and roles for today, as I mentioned, and determining fair market value of the property today, and things such as prior negotiations that took place between the parties prior to this hearing are not to be considered. What you have before you is an appraisal by a professional appraiser. You'll hear more from him later on.
That was
And what he used to.
That did not do the appraisal.
Wait.
Okay.
And the methods that he used to develop his appraisal and the analysis he used to provide that value for you.
And they wanted the appraisal during COVID, and during that time, I also had pit bulls, and it made it really difficult to secure them, and during COVID, to let somebody else in the house. So he did his appraisal from the outside of the house.
Which we didn't have a problem with that, really. I mean, if they would have considered Matt's extra land, like I say, there's a third of his land in one appraisal spot where they've adjusted him $0 for a third of his land. Proper appraisal to us. I can say kind of the same things. I mean, the reality is Matt's got options here. He's gonna appeal an amount that's too low. He's gonna take this to a jury trial, and if the city wants to make an